So, here's a question that's been eating at me lately, and I'm betting some of you have felt this way too. When does recycling content cross the line from helpful curation to lazy cash grab? Because I'm about to call out one of my favorite podcasts, and honestly, I'm not sure if I'm being a cranky longtime listener or if I've stumbled onto something that should annoy all of us. Let me start by saying this. I absolutely love Stuff You Should Know. Josh and Chuck have been my intellectual companions for years now, and if you've never listened to them, SYSK, Stuff You Should Know, is basically like having two incredibly well-researched friends who can make anything, and I mean anything, fascinating. One week, they're explaining how hot air balloons work, and the next, they're diving deep into the history of mayonnaise. And somehow, Josh and Chuck make it riveting every time. For someone like me with the attention span of a caffeinated squirrel, and interests that range from medieval torture devices to the science of bubble wrap, SYSK is perfect. These guys take completely disconnected topics and serve them up in perfectly digestible 30-minute to hour-long episodes. It's intellectual fast food, but I think kind of good for you. Kind of like if McDonald's suddenly started serving good salads. And let me tell you, these episodes have saved me through countless road trips. You know, that stretch of highway where you're somewhere between, I should probably stop for gas, and if I hear one more classic rock song, I'm going to drive myself into a ditch. Then it's time for Stuff You Should Know. I've learned about everything from the Salem witch trials to how soap works to the history of Tin Pan Alley. So it's been the best companion I could have ever asked for on most of my road trips or just commuting. But here's where things get complicated. Recently, Stuff You Should Know started doing something called Selects, basically re-releasing old episodes back into their main feed. Now, on the surface, this sounds reasonable. Some of those older episodes are buried in archives dating back maybe over a decade. Maybe there's a gem about cryptocurrency from 2013 that suddenly feels relevant again, or an episode about pandemics from 2009 that hits you a little differently now. But here's the problem, and tell me if this sounds familiar. I'm driving, autoplay kicks in, and I start listening to what seems like a new episode. The topic sounds interesting, Josh and Chuck are the usual charming selves, and I'm getting into it. Then about 10 or 15 minutes in, I get this weird déjà vu feeling. Like, wait, haven't they already talked about this once? Or did I already know this? It seems a little confusing. And then it hits me, I've heard this exact episode before. Now I'm that person fumbling with my phone while driving, trying to check if this is a select while simultaneously cursing myself for not paying attention to the episode title. I call it intellectual blue balls. I don't know what that means. Look, I get it. Content creation is hard work, and Josh and Chuck have been cranking out quality episodes for 15 years now, maybe more? That's over 2,000 episodes of researched, scripted, and recorded content. And when I see these selects popping up, part of me thinks, hey, maybe they just needed a break. Maybe this is their way of saying, here's some of our best work while we prep the next batch of episodes. But then the cynical part of my brain kicks in, the part that's watched Netflix cancel good shows while pumping out reality TV because it's cheaper to produce and far more profitable. Are selects really about surfacing great content for new listeners, or are they about slapping a sponsorship onto old content and collecting a little easy money? Here's what gets me really suspicious. I've been listening to podcasts for years, and I can't think of another show that regularly re-releases old episodes into their main feed like this. This American Life doesn't do it, Radio Lab doesn't do it, the Peter Von Panda podcast doesn't do it. Even smaller podcasts I follow don't do this. So either Stuff You Should Know has discovered some brilliant strategy that everyone else is missing, or they found a way to monetize their back catalog that other shows haven't been shameless enough to try yet. And you know what it's caused me to start doing? I automatically delete any episode label select without even checking to see what it's about. That probably makes me part of the problem, but honestly, it's become a reflex. My podcast app downloads episodes automatically, and now I'm spending time each week playing content janitor, sorting through what's actually new and what's been recycled. Which brings me to a bigger question. Is this even necessary? One of the beautiful things about podcasts is that they're not television reruns. Every episode exists in perpetuity. If you want to go back and listen to an old episode about the history of the toilet or fencing of the commons, I can just scroll back through the catalog. It's all there. That's literally how podcasts work. It's like someone constantly forwarding you emails you'd already received instead of just telling you to check your sent folder. Sure, it might surface something good occasionally, but mostly it's just cluttering up your inbox. Now, I want to be fair because maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe there are new listeners who would never think to dig through hundreds of old episodes to find the good stuff. Maybe Selects really is a public service, like having a knowledgeable friend say, oh, you've never heard this episode? Dude, you have to give it a listen. And honestly, if these selects felt more curated, like once a month instead of every 3 episodes, or they did some special commentary tracks, or even an update to the topic, I probably wouldn't care this much. It would feel a little bit more thoughtful and a little bit more intentional and less like recycling. But let's be real about what's probably happening here. Podcasting is a business, and businesses need revenue streams. I know it. Re-releasing old content with new ads is basically free money. No research, no scripting, no recording. Just slap some new sponsor reads on an old episode about the history of chewing gum, and boom, you've got new content. Now, I'm not saying Josh and Chuck are sitting in some corporate boardroom twirling mustaches while counting money. I mean, relative to me, they are. But these guys seem genuinely passionate about education and sharing knowledge. But someone in their organization definitely looked at thousands of hours of existing content and thought, how do we monetize this again? And maybe that would be fine if it didn't impact the listener experience, but to me it does. When you're a longtime fan who's listened to hundreds of episodes, I think maybe more than 70, 80, 90% of them, having old content mixed in with new creates this weird cognitive dissonance. It's like going to your favorite restaurant and having them randomly serve you the same meal you had 6 months ago without telling you first. So here's where I land on this. I still love Stuff You Should Know. I listen to it all the time. Whenever I've got some downtime, a long walk, commuting, travel, Josh and Chuck are still doing great work, and their new episodes are still must-listen content for me. But the Selects thing feels like a misstep, a solution to a problem that doesn't really exist for us, the listeners. It's designed to solve a business challenge rather than serve the longtime listener like me. If you're a Stuff You Should Know listener, I'm curious how you feel about this. Are you discovering great old episodes through Selects? Or are you like me, automatically hitting delete? And if you work in podcasting, is this the future we're heading towards? Endless recycling of old content for new ad revenue? Because honestly, if that's where we're going, I might just stick to audiobooks. So, thanks for listening, and remember, just because something is labeled select doesn't mean it's worth your time. Sometimes the best curation is knowing when to hit skip. Peter von Panda, out.